What I find amazing about the start of this is you can't say it started out peacefully because poor Trevor Locke, the policeman on duty, kind of took a little bit of wounding to the face. But it started out almost not benevolent, but it wasn't as threatening as you hear other places where it's like people are getting executed right away. It's like these 6 terrorists came in and we're trying to make a point. If we can make our point and get out of here, we're going to try to. It kind of started there, but then started to curdle pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, no, that's very well put, Brendan. I mean, they were an odd kind of terrorists, these people. They were not brutal suicide bombers. They intended to survive this experience. Their plan was to go in, hold hostages, Iranian hostages. They had no idea there were any British or any other people inside it. Hold Iranian hostages, these representatives of the Ayatollah's regime, force the Ayatollah to release Arab prisoners in Iran, at which point they hoped and believed the British would provide a plane, they would release the hostages, and they'd all go home. I mean, it sounds like a very naive expectation now, but actually, in the circumstances of sort of 1970s terrorism, it was not unheard of. I mean, incidents like this had happened before, and the British had a record at times of negotiating with terrorists and allowing them to go free. So they had an expectation that they were naive, partly. They were being manipulated by the Iraqi Mukhabarat, brutal security service of Saddam Hussein. They were being used and they were pawns in a game, but they had reason to believe. So it starts in a kind of quite gentle, reasonably gentle way. And the gunmen are rather astonished at what they've ended up with. They've got far more hostages than they ever wanted. And the whole thing has become sort of complicated. They thought that they would deliver their message, get the prisoners released and go home. In fact, what then transpires is an increasingly tense standoff with the hostages and gunmen inside the building and hostage negotiators outside trying to talk them down and trying to talk them out. You've got the politicians in the emergency committee back in Whitehall who are pressing for a bloodless conclusion to this, but are nonetheless, Thatcher is adamant that these people are not going to get away. They're not going to get out scot-free. So that the negotiators are in some ways in an impossible position. And at the same time, you have the SAS fully tooled up in the next door building, ready to go in and take the place down and liberate the hostages if they possibly can. That's a plan that's been in place for many years, actually. I mean, the British capacity to respond to terrorism had been improving steadily over the previous 8 years. And the SAS always had a group ready on standby. The only problem was they'd never actually been used. So this was the first time that they might conceivably be deployed. So you've got all these different elements contributing to a tense situation that is all taking place. And this is really why I love this story. It's all taking place in one room. The theatre in which this is happening is one large room inside the embassy. And we know what's happening inside there, in part because MI5, the security service, and the police are inserting listening devices into the walls. These sound very antique and rustic by our standards today. At that point, they were cutting edge. These were micro audio probes that were being put in. So the conversations that were taking place inside the embassy were being recorded outside it. And you can actually piece together who was saying what to whom at any given moment. So it really does become a kind of TikTok, if you like, as it sort of moves towards the extraordinarily dramatic climax.